Right, let's move on now, and it's an important day. The RBI releases its economic survey and we'll have the budget tomorrow, so just a little over 24 hours to go. What are India Inc.'s key expectations? Let's discuss this with Mr. V Vaidyanathan. He's founder and chairman of Capital First. Good morning, Mr. Vaidyanathan. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. What are the big expectations from the budget? Let's start from the key expectations from your side first.
I think this is a very important budget for maybe 2 or 3 reasons. One is I think this is the first, maybe the last budget before the rollout of the GST, and after which many of the tax structures will get subsumed in the GST. So this is an important one in that context. Number 2, I think that maybe from next year onwards, the national elections will start playing on the mind of politicians. So this is probably the last budget before the big election comes about. Of course, there are small state elections coming up, but in that sense. And thirdly, in the context of demonetization, this becomes a very important budget.
Right, Mr. Vaidyanathan, demonetization, a step taken well from a long-term perspective by common man. However, it did create a lot of trouble in the initial time. The tax reform is something that is closely eyed. What is your expectation?
Well, I've been watching a number of television programs for the last few days talking about budget expectations. I think a number of industries are coming and mentioning about how their industry is a big force multiplier for the GDP of the country and how, tax structures should be improved for them. But one statistic that stuck on me is actually more important than individual sectors. If the effective tax rate for the country is as low as below 25%, the large corporates incidentally with turnover over 500 crores are paying taxes of only about 23%, and the smaller companies with turnover less than 1 crore strangely are paying taxes of 29.37%. So it's ironical that small companies are paying a higher tax rate. This has probably come about because a large number of dispensations have been given in the name of investments or whatever reason. So if there is one real issue to address in the country, I'd say that maybe remove all exemptions, get the tax rate down to 25% as the FM has suggested before. If he can pull that off, I think that will be a really, really big one and probably the defining moment for India.
Right, Mr. Vaidyanathan, you've been closely knit with the consumer space, lending for two-wheelers, lending for small requirements and medium requirements. What's the sense that you're getting on the ground, and what are the key aspirations on that front as well, if you can tell us?
See, on the consumption side, clearly demonetization did affect the consumption at an operating level. If you could see the sales numbers of, say, consumer durables, sales numbers of two-wheelers and so on, you could see they were all down maybe 15-20% in December as compared to November and before. The fact is that that is already very soon returning to normalcy with the availability of cash that is now being dispensed to the banking system. Our estimate is that by January, both the collections on existing accounts as well as incremental offtake of consumption in the country as well as disbursals by banks and NBFCs, by Jan, February, March, it will all be back to normal. So therefore, when we look at the budget point of view, I would say that larger tax reforms are more important. Of course, there is an expectation that on the personal income tax level, because consumers, because of greater tax collection, because of demonetization, will the tax slabs go up? Probably yes. Will the small entrepreneurs' tax structures be different than the large corporate structure? We don't know. But certainly these are certain expectations.
Well, there is a lot of expectation that the individual tax rates will go down. We hope so that happens. Thank you, Mr. Vaidyanathan, for joining us and giving us your views this morning. Moving ahead then, let's get our guest on board. We are joined by Manas Jaiswal, Gaurav Vissa, as well as Mohit Gaba, who is joining us in the studio. Thanks very much, gentlemen, for joining us today.